Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Please welcome a keynote speaker, Fredrik Haren, CSP, to speak on Do Not Build Business, Build an Enterprise.
Good morning, fellow speakers. Good morning, fellow professional speakers, I think I should say. I have a specific goal with my 45 minutes, or roughly 45 minutes, and my goal is to give as much insight, as much knowledge, and also as much inspiration as I can around what it means to build a successful, truly global, keynote speaking enterprise. Right? That's my goal. It's a very, very niche thing that I do. I'm not saying you have to do what I'm doing, but that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it in 3 ways. I'm going to spend the first 10 minutes or so talking about the word enterprise. Because I think if the theme for this conference for 2 days is enterprise, I think me, as one of the first speakers, should take some of my time to actually talk about the theme of the conference before I speak about the topic of my talk. What is enterprise and what does it mean? Second of all, I'm going to speak about what. What does it mean to be a truly global speaker? Because I think there are different ideas around what it means, and I'm going to try to illustrate what it means, at least what it means for me. And then, the bulk of my speech, will be about, okay, so how? Now, if I want to be a truly global speaker, how do I do it? How do I get to speak more globally? And maybe, just for the fun of it, maybe I should ask you, how many of you are seriously, don't be nice to me, okay, just be honest, how many of you are seriously interested in speaking in much more countries than you do now, let's say? Good, almost everyone. That means that I can now relax a little bit, because to be honest, I wasn't so sure that it was a good idea to put me on this conference. I was honored when Andrew asked me, can you speak at the AESS convention? I said, absolutely, for you anything. But then I asked, what is the theme of the conference? And he said, enterprise. And I said, can I speak next year? Because for me, this word makes no sense whatsoever, right? It makes a little bit of sense, but it makes no sense whatsoever to have me speak on the topic of enterprise. I can speak on expertise for sure. I can speak on ethics, I can speak on elements, but enterprise felt so out of line. So I think we need to start with that. What does enterprise mean? Actually, I'm not even native in the English language. I didn't understand what the word meant. So I went to the dictionary. What does the word mean? Okay, there is some clicker problems going on here. Is that the other one? There we go. Tip number 1, as a professional speaker, make sure you're using the right clicker. Make sure they give you the right clicker. Alright. So what does enterprise mean? Well, according to the dictionary, we will soon find out that this word has absolutely nothing to do with being a speaker. Let's start with the first one. An enterprise is a project or an activity that involves many people. Hello, many people. We are probably, as an industry, at the bottom 1% when it comes to having a lot of people working for us. A dentist has more staff than we do. A dentist has a nurse. Raise your hand if you have a nurse. Of course, Scott Friedman has a nurse. But the rest of us, we don't. Some of us have staff, some of us has a lot of staff, but a lot of us has 0 staff. And I, for one, I've been a professional speaker for 21 years. And after 21 years of building my enterprise, my total number of staff is my wife, 3 hours per day. So obviously, the first definition, and an activity that involves a lot of many people, it's not relevant, at least not relevant for me when it comes to enterprise. And yes, we speak to thousands of people, we work with hundreds of people, and we have dozens of people in our network. But I don't call that an enterprise, I call it a network. So obviously it's not the first one. So how about the second one? Well, the second one is even more confusing. An enterprise is the ability or desire to do dangerous or difficult things. Seriously? This is the least dangerous job I can think of. Okay, you might want to say that it's difficult, and some people think it's difficult, but dangerous, seriously? What? A taxi driver is dangerous. The first thing that can happen if you're a taxi driver is that you kill someone or you get killed. If you're a pilot, the worst thing that can happen is that you kill yourself and 500 people. What's the worst thing that can happen to a speaker? Seriously, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Die on stage.
Yeah, you die on stage, yeah. You lose your voice so. Okay, compare that to killing someone, alright? It just isn't dangerous. So obviously it must be difficult then. And some people think it's difficult. I think the people who don't like to speak think it's extremely difficult. But I am going to argue that our industry is again, bottom 1% when it comes to difficult jobs. And you don't think so, and we might not think so. Sometimes we try to make this job being so complex and so difficult, and we make it so complex. But if you look at it, I'm going to give you one example, and I'm going to prove how undifficult this job is. About 1.5 years ago, I am on a stage. There's a conference in India. 700 CEOs and CIOs of big Indian companies. It's broadcast live on national Indian television. This is a huge event. They have 2 keynote speakers. I'm one of them. Very happy to be there. But do you know who the second speaker is? It's Captain Phillips. You remember Captain Phillips? You remember the movie? Yeah. There's Tom Hanks in the lead role. It's an okay movie, but it's an awesome story. And it's even more awesome when you consider it's actually based on a true event. There is an actual Captain Phillips. If you don't remember it, the movie and the story is about a captain on an American oil tanker who goes past Ethiopia and is hijacked by Somali pirates. And the captain becomes something of a hero because he sacrifices himself as a hostage so that the rest of the crew can stay on the boat. And he almost dies, I think, 5 times. And at the end, is rescued by the mighty American Navy. It's an amazing story, it's a true story. Now here's what happened. One person, probably a speaker bureau, heard about this story, heard they're doing a movie with Tom Hanks in it, this is going to be big, this is PR, calls Captain Phillips up on a satellite telephone on his boat and says to him, "Hello, Captain Phillips, would you like to make more money in 1 hour than you do on 2 weeks on a boat?" Captain Phillips says, "Tell me more." And he says, "We're going to make you a speaker." And I said, "I don't know how to speak, I know nothing about speaking." It's okay, we're going to bring in a speechwriter, we're going to write a speech for you. So all you have to do is memorize the thing we're writing, we are giving to you. And I heard his speech, and it was a stand-up comic who wrote the speech. He gave a speech that was his story, but it wasn't his words. Someone else wrote those words. And 3 months after going from being an utter amateur with no ambition at all to be a professional speaker and no knowledge whatsoever of being a keynote speaker, after 3 months, this man is a keynote speaker in a big event on another side of the world. He's on top of our industry. Now you ask yourself this question. Let's say you're on the same tanker, oil tanker. Your boat is kidnapped, you're a passenger on it, you almost get killed 5 times. You become a hero and you're saved by the American Navy at the end. It's a good story, you survive. 3 weeks later, someone calls you and says, "Hi, I'm the CEO of a big oil tanker company. Would you like to make as much money in 2 weeks as you do in 1 hour?" You go, "No, but tell me more." "Well, we have this guy who's going to write you a manual on what it means to be a pilot, a captain on a ship. You don't have to know anything, you just have to memorize what we write. And 3 months from now, we're going to make you a captain of an oil tanker and you're going to be in charge. Will you do it?" Raise your hand if you will do it. No, because that would be terrifying. that would be dangerous and difficult. But we are in an industry where you can take a nobody and make him a somebody in 3 weeks. Let's not over-dramatize what we do. Now you could say, well, you have to be kidnapped and a hero first. That's true. We have to have a story. But we all have stories. My point is, it's obviously not dangerous or difficult. It's kind of like Othello. If you're just new in this industry, you say, is he trying to make it sound like, I'm not saying it's trivial. I'm saying it's not difficult. It's like Othello. You know the game? 5 minutes to learn and a lifetime to master. We constantly have to try to become better at what we do, but the basic fundamentals of what we do is very simple. Go up on stage and tell a good story. So obviously, enterprise has to be about the last definition. And the last definition is a business organization. And it is true. Some speakers have amazing business organizations. Some people in this room I have huge respect for because they have been able to, around their speaking industry or their speaking profession, build a very successful business organization. And some of them we will hear from during these 2 days. And I'm very, very happy that we're having this thing. I think it's a good thing. Like Heather, where are you, Heather? If you don't know Heather, you don't miss her session. This is a woman who's been able to go from being a speaker to, correct me if I'm wrong, being able to have a global business based out of her living room, selling online courses. Doesn't have to travel a day if she doesn't have to. Making money from that on the internet. That is what I call a business organization. We have people like Nisha. I don't think Nisha is here today. But Nisha, a person who's been able to use social media and Facebook ads to get people to sign up for his seminars, so he doesn't need to have anyone booking him. He books himself. Now that is a business organization. We have people like Eric, who's been able, amazing. He's been able to take his speaking and build a whole company around it with trainers, selling, making money without having to do anything, except having other people working for him. And so on and so on and so on. But my point is this. Yes, as a speaker, we can build a business organization around what we do. But we don't have to. We don't have to. In fact, saying, to be a speaker, you can be a middle-aged white man, but you don't have to be. Actually, today it doesn't matter what you are. You can build an enterprise around your speaking business, but you don't have to. And that I am the proof of. I guess I am here as the example, the outlier, the exception to the rule, with no business organization, no staff, and a very, very simple business model. And people don't know this. The second most common question I get is, Fredrik, you're such a global speaker, such a successful speaker, why haven't you built an organization around your business? And the answer is, I have. 20 years ago, at the age of 27, I started, just like Eric, a company that was based on my speaking, but selling my consultancy services. For 5 years, we hired one person every month. And after 5 years, we had 60 employees. We had revenue of more than $10 million. And speaking was less than 1% of my revenue. But it was the thing that sold everything else. But 15 years ago, I sold the company. And after that, I said, I'm just going to do one thing for the rest of my life. I'm just going to do the one thing I love to do the most. And that is to speak globally. To go around the world and speak. And I'm not going to have all of that crap with employees and stress and can't sleep and all of that thing that goes around with having an organization. And that's why I only have my wife working for me for 3 hours per day. So, I don't have an enterprise. So what the hell am I doing speaking at a 2 days Well, thank God for the introduction this morning. Because if you look in the dictionary, I have no reason to be here. But if you look, we are in the 21st century and we're not supposed to look in the dictionary, we're supposed to look at the Google. And if you go to Google and you Google enterprise, you get nothing of this crap. You get this. And this is who I am. I explore strange new world. I seek new life and new civilization, and I boldly go where no speaker has ever gone before. If this is what enterprise is, I am 100% enterprise. I say, see me up, Singapore Airlines. So now, let's look at what that means. What does it mean to be a truly global keynote speaker? And I thought, how can I illustrate this? Because I can't talk about it. If I'm selling this coaching, I can take someone up from the audience and I can start coaching them to show you what does it mean to coach. If I'm showing how to do online advertising, I can show you, log on and show Facebook and show how I do it. But how do I show to a group in Singapore what it means to be a truly global speaker? How can I illustrate this? And I bet the best way I can illustrate it is to take you on a journey and show you what it means. So I put together for this little thing a video. It's 1.5 minute long video, and it summarizes what I did last year in my job as a global keynote speaker. And this is the inspiration part. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes, here we go. What happens in your brain if you go around and work in 22 different countries in 1 year? Well, this is what it looks like. Last year, I was on paternity leave for 5 months. I did that in 7 months, and 5 months I spent with my kids. Basically, I do one thing and one thing only. I speak around the world. Now, I'm even more niche, as we heard in the video from the very first introduction, is like find your niche, do one thing. And I have done that differently from almost any other speaker. Because when you ask me, how do you define yourself? I'm probably the only speaker who don't define myself based on what I speak on. Like I speak on, he said, I'm speaking on leadership, I'm speaking on creativity, I'm speaking on storytelling or whatever. But I don't define myself as this. I define myself as being the global conference speaker. I speak around the world, but I speak at global conferences around the world. My niche is to speak at those audiences, those conferences where we have people from 100 countries or 80 countries. That's an extreme niche. And the reason I have this niche is like this. Imagine if you're organizing a big global conference, and you have a short list of 10 people. Oh, we have an innovation speaker, we have a business leadership speaker, we have a presentation skills speaker. Oh, then we have this Fredrik. What does he do? Well, he's the global conference speaker. He only speaks at global conferences. That means I'm automatically on the short list for the last 2. Because if you organize a global conference, and one guy only speaks at global conferences, you are going to feel very safe with him. So now we're down to the last 3. Then they ask me, so Fredrik, what do you talk on? Well, I talk on creativity and change in global mindset. Oh, that's what we want. And then I get it. So today, I'm not only going to speak about how to speak in different countries, I'm also going to speak about how to speak at the global conferences, because the global conferences are the biggest conferences there are. Those are the ones you want. At least those are the ones I want. Alright, so, this is actually the 3rd time I'm speaking on this topic. How to be a global. The other 2 are on YouTube. If you want to Google it, Google Fredrik Haren Global Speaker, and you can find part 1 and part 2. This is part 3. In part 2, I said, the only way you become a global speaker is by doing a good speech. If you do such a good speech, and 2 people come up afterwards and say, that was an amazing speech, can you come to us and also speak for us? You will double your speaking business every year. And I truly believe this. For the last time I did this speech, I went through every single speech I did in 2014. 88 speeches, I think. And say, how did I get that speech? And every single one of them, except like 2 or 3, I got because someone heard me speak before. This is true. It is just the truth. But a lot of people have come up to me after that, after seeing it on YouTube or after hearing me say that, Fredrik, it cannot be that simple. And I got a picture in my head. It's kind of like a young student who asks an old person, how do you get successful in life? You say, follow your passion and work hard. 30 years later, that's going to be a very bitter old man who say, hey, I followed my passion, I worked hard, I didn't get success. What's wrong? You're lied to. Well, yes. Those are the basic fundamentals of success, but you also need to be good at networking, you need to be good at taking opportunities and so on. So today I'm going to do something different here. I went back to the speeches I did in 2015, and I looked. Not at all that I did, I picked 5. And I went deeper. 5 kind of typical speeches of what I do. I went deeper and said, how did I get this speech? But more importantly, what can we learn from those speeches? And here are the 5 speeches that I picked. Okay. First one. Canon Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Europe Client Conference in Paris, France. 15,000 people in the conference. And I spoke at the Africa and Middle Eastern part of the conference. They had 2 keynote speakers. One was Mr. Cannon himself. Mr. Cannon, the chairman of Cannon, 80 years old, the founder. Makes sense to have him there. The other speaker was me. It makes no sense whatsoever. Why on earth would you book me? Think about it. It's Africa, Middle East, and Europe conference. I live in Singapore. Should we take some from Africa, Middle East, or Europe to speak at this conference? No, let's go. They told me. Here's the second one. BMW car dealers. All the BMW car dealers in America. America is different from all other countries, that Americans generally don't like to have speakers come from other countries. They don't trust so much people who don't speak with an American accent. The truth. American speakers can speak everywhere, but foreign speakers it's very tricky to get into the American market. It's just the truth. It is tricky to get in. There is nothing more American than a car dealer. And here we have hundreds of car dealers, and they didn't pick an American, they didn't even pick a German. Which would make sense. They picked me. Makes no sense whatsoever. Third example, Bentley Global Conference. Now here, all the dealers of Bentley from around the world in Liverpool. Okay, here it makes sense because you're going to have a global conference. You can take any one of the speakers in this room or anywhere. Out of 10,000 professional speakers in the world, you can take anyone. So it makes sense to pick me, right? Or anyone else, but also me. Except when you find out that this is the Bentley Global Partner Dealer Conference in 2015, and I spoke at the Bentley Partner Dealer Conference for Bentley in 2014. I was the keynote speaker the year before, and you never, ever bring back the same keynote speaker to the same group 2 years in a row. But they did, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Fourth example, next year, the Global Partner Conference, which means 180 people from 130 countries. The Global Conference, which means you can take any speaker from anywhere, but it happens in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. 2 speakers, 2 external keynote speakers. One, a mountaineer from South America, who was one of the first South Americans to climb Mount Everest. Makes sense, the conference is in South America, bringing in a South American. The second speaker is me. The furthest place to fly someone in to Rio de Janeiro is from Singapore. Makes no sense. I had to fly Singapore, Japan, San Francisco, Houston, Rio de Janeiro, Portugal, Amsterdam, Singapore. I literally went around the world for this speech. Made no sense to bring me in. Visa. The innovation conference for Visa, when they need to understand what is happening in technology, when the financial services is being digitalized, and they have the conference in San Francisco, you would think that maybe you bring in a speaker from San Francisco. That would make sense. But no, they have a conference in San Francisco and they don't bring someone in from Silicon Valley, they bring someone in from Singapore who doesn't know anything about tech. Makes no sense. And the last one. Ernst & Young Partner Conference. All the partners of Ernst & Young in Asia, in Singapore. As it happens. Now you could say that makes sense, Fredrik, you're a Singapore-based speaker, therefore of course you should speak there, except when you look at who the other two keynote speakers were. There were three keynote speakers. One, some head of the economist from London, telling them what is happening in the world right now. The other one, Guy Kawasaki. You know Guy Kawasaki? Yes. From Apple? Mr. IT Trend himself, fly in from San Francisco to the conference. One from London, one from San Francisco. It is obvious that they didn't pick speakers based on where they are based. They picked the speakers they wanted. Two very famous people and me, who is totally, utterly unfamous. Makes no sense. So I decided, let's look at those 5 speeches and say, yes, I got all of those 5 speeches on recommendations. The reason I was there was someone heard me speak. But that's not enough for you. You want to know what else? What are the tips and tricks that we can learn? So we're going to do that now for the last 20 minutes. What can we do? What can we learn from going behind the scenes of those 5 speeches? And now I'm not going to talk about me anymore. I need to talk about me in the beginning because you need to understand who I am and what I do. But now I'm going to disconnect myself from this speech and I'm not going to talk about me anymore. I'm going to talk about the places that I did those speeches in. So we are going to talk about what can we learn from Fredrik Haren, but what can we learn from the places I did the speeches in. And 4 of these examples will be about how you make your speech better. Only one will be about how to improve your business. Because I utterly think that how important enterprise or business is, it should never take up more than 20% of your time. 80% of your time as a speaker should be based on you figuring out how to be a better speaker, 20% how to build my business. That's what I do. So let's start. Let's start with Paris. So what can we learn about Paris? Well, I call it the Eiffel Tower model of speaking. Down here, we have every single local conference that happens in the local country. Every local car dealer in Germany and Sweden and Brazil, every dentist conference and foreign. There is probably 1 million conferences happening every day around the world on the local level. Here we have the regional conferences, and here we have the global conferences. The big ones, the ones we want. And there is probably any day, I don't know the numbers exactly, but let's say 1,000 global conferences happening around the world. Now it looks like this is very difficult because there's so few of them and there's so many of these. But I am going to argue it's the opposite. Now how do you go from this to this? 3 things. First thing. One thing leads to another. That doesn't mean things just happen. It means one thing leads to another. And what you need to figure out is, when you do a speech, you have to figure out, the speech that I'm doing down here, is this going to lead to another speech happening here, or is it going to lead to a speech happening here? Because one thing leads to another. If you speak for only local tax accountants in Stockholm, and then you say, oh, I got another speech for a local tax accountant in Gothenburg, then you're down here. And you're never going to get through. You understand what I'm talking about? But if your mindset, you're speaking to a local tax accountant in Stockholm and you say, how can I get to do the national conference for tax accountants in Sweden? Now you're going from the local one to the national one. Then you do the Swedish conference and then you say, how can I go from the Swedish conference to the European conference? Now you're doing the European conference. And the person who organizes the European conference, there's someone at the audience talking about the American conference. Now you're speaking at the American conference and then boom, can you speak at the global conference? That's how you do it. You always mentally try to walk upward. Number one. Number two, when you get up here, whenever you do a global conference, whatever kind it is, then you start doing like when they drill for oil. You know how they drill for oil? They used to drill for oil. They would drill down all the way until they find oil. And then when that was finished, they would drill all the way down to find another oil. And that's how speakers, a lot of speakers work. But that's not how you work today. Now if you drill after oil, you drill down and then you turn the drill 90 degrees and then you start drilling like this. So when you're up here, then you say, how can I get more speeches here? To change your strategy. I did a speech last week, exactly 1 week ago, in Bangkok. 1,300 people from 130 countries. I am not lying or exaggerating. I got concrete requests. In business cards, people coming up to me afterwards saying, we want to book you from 41 countries. And I've already been booked. This happened last week. I've already been booked from those requests in 4 countries already. 41 countries from one speech. That's when you get up here. You change your strategy. And thirdly, the Eiffel Tower model of speaking means these are not trickier to get than these. These speakers are not better than these speakers. They just have a different mindset. It's not 1,000 best speakers who speak globally. It's not 1,000 worst ones either. They have to be pretty good to do it. But there's probably 10,000 speakers who could be those 1,000 speakers. So, if you're a Singapore speaker and you define yourself, I am a Singapore speaker and I speak in Singapore, because you think that the competition is then less because you're only competing with 60 other speakers, you are down here and you are competing with 60 other speakers, but you're also competing for those maybe 1,000 speeches that happen in Singapore. If you're a global speaker, you compete with maybe the same amount of number of speakers for the same amount of speakers. It's equally difficult to get a global speech and a local Singaporean speech. Think about the Ernst & Young conference. It happened in Singapore, but no one defining himself or herself as being a Singapore speaker got that job. I got it because I'm defining myself as a global speaker. Which means, if you're a global speaker, you are not only competing for these conferences, you are actually competing for all of these speeches. Which means there's less competition on the top. Does that make sense? When I spoke for the American car dealers, that was not a global conference. But the reason I got that job was because I spoke at BMW headquarters and someone from America said, that was great, can you come and speak in America? So do the global conference speeches, you can get all the trickle-down speeches as well. That's the trickle-down economy. That's what we can learn from Paris. Now, what can we learn from Las Vegas? Las Vegas is the capital of what? Gambling, but I would say it's the capital of entertainment. So what we can learn from Las Vegas is that they have decided that we are going to be all about entertainment, but we're also going to be all about business. So when they do boxing, it's not just boxing, it's the whole business around the boxing. And it's the largest conference place in the world. And you have to think like they do. Which means, if I look at the people who don't get global speeches, there are 2 reasons why they don't get it. Reason number 1, they are not entertaining enough. Because now I'm doing a speech which is about educating you about how I do things, but if I do a global keynote speech, I am a stand-up comedian, okay? I am funny. They book me because I am funny. Because when you have a global conference, they want to be entertained. It's a reward to fly to Las Vegas to a global conference. And you need to be funny and entertaining, or emotional and make them cry, something. You need to move them. You need to move them. If you don't do that, you're not going to get that conference. But at the same time, you need to do business. And if your topic is not business-oriented, they will not book you, regardless how funny you are. And a lot of speakers, they make the mistake of speaking on a topic that is nice to hear. You need to speak on a topic that is needed to hear. We have 1 speaker at this conference, 2 speakers at this conference, and this is the one they need to hear. If you're not getting the global conferences, it's either because you're not entertaining enough, or you don't have a business focus enough on your topic. So make it more business-oriented. learn from Liverpool. I didn't say be inspired from Liverpool because this one is about Titanic. The Titanic was built in Liverpool. At least there's a Titanic museum in Liverpool, and the conference happened in the Titanic museum. So I thought, what can we learn about the Titanic when it comes to speaking? And I find a very simple analogy, which is kind of a cliche. So forgive me for giving you a cliche, but it is the one cliche that is true. Titanic was not about the boat; it was about the journey. They were talking about the boat. Oh, it's the most unsinkable boat you can ever, we are the biggest and most unsinkable boat. Well, you forgot it was about the journey, and the most unsinkable boat they could think of went too far north, hit an iceberg and sank. This is the equivalent of, it's not about you as a speaker, it's about the message. It's not about you as a speaker, it's about the message. And that is a cliche that you will hear at any NSA conference for the last 40 years, but that's the one you need to emphasize. Because most speakers don't seem to get it. And what I get so annoyed at global speak conferences is speakers who are trying to sell themselves. It's not allowed. I did a speech yesterday in Penang for a global travel conference, and I swear to you, I'm not lying, on that briefing call on Monday, she literally said to me, "You're not trying to sell your book, are you?" From the stage anyway. I said, I would never do that. Don't do it. Don't sell your book. Don't even have a picture of your book on the slides. Don't have your Twitter account. Don't have your Facebook page. Don't have a web page where you can sign up for more information. No, you're not doing them a service. You are not helping them sign up more information. You are selling yourself, and it makes the audience go uncomfortable. You can do that here. You can do that in a small training, but if you're paying full fee for a global conference, it's just not allowed. This is like speaking, this is like the Phantom of the Opera in the middle of the musical, the most amazing part of the musical. Imagine if the Phantom just stopped and said, "Oh, by the way, if you would like to buy something." They pay you big bucks to be on that stage. You made your money already, just take those slides out. And I swear to you, you are going to get more business than if you leave them in. It hurts, because you're missing a great sales opportunity, but it's going to give you business. I never do it, and I move the door. Okay, so Brazil. When we say Rio de Janeiro, what do we think about? Carnival! But actually, I will go one step further. I would say that Rio is not about Carnival. Rio is about happiness. Rio is about enjoying life. That's what it stands for. And what I mean by that is that if you go deeper from the theme and you find the inner theme, the core of what the brand stands for, it's a human emotion. And a lot of times speakers will define themselves based on what the topic that they speak on, but I would like to go further. I want you to find your inner themes. So we'll have an example. Sir, what do you speak on? Creativity. Okay? That's the theme that he speaks on. But let's see if we can find his inner theme. Why do you speak on creativity? Why do the people need to hear this?
The code changes.
Okay, so why do they need to change?
Because they're stuck, they're afraid to move on.
Exactly. And that's actually a very good observation, because I know you have a background, we know each other a little bit, I know that you have a background in improvisational theater, right? And improvisation is all about letting go of the fear, like you said, right? It's not about creativity, it's like, what happens if we just let go and just say anything that pops into my head? And we all know, everyone who's done improvisation knows that when that happens, we're free. Suddenly we're let go and suddenly we can do anything, right? That's what you talk about. You don't talk about creativity, you talk about making people let go of their fears. That's what you talk about. That's the inner theme. That's what you do, We have Eric, where are you? Eric and I, we have a small mastermind group where we just meet once in a while and share experiences. He teaches me, I teach him. Last time we met, I said, what do you speak about? I said, I speak about charismatic leadership. I said, we speak about presentation skills. We speak of one more thing, like sales training or things like that. And I said, okay, those are your themes. What is your inner theme? What's your inner theme? He said, I don't know. And actually, remember this? We struggled for a while. Right? For 30 minutes, we're like, can't really fix it. And then he told me this amazing story. He told me that when he was 9 years old, he would stay, when school was finished, he would stay in school and he would pretend to be a teacher, and he would teach himself. And then his classmates would say, oh, you're teaching us, can you teach us too? And he would be a teacher, 9 years old, teaching his classmates because he just wanted to learn. I said, that's your inner theme. Your inner theme is not the things that you say you talk about. Your inner theme is about learning. You want people to learn. And I showed them this picture, the picture of this 6-year-old Filipino boy who sits outside McDonald's because he doesn't have a light in his house because he wants to read at night. I said, this is what you do to unlock the potential of learning in human beings, regardless if it's presentation skills or sales training or charismatic or whatever it is. That's who you are. And when you find your inner theme, that should answer this question. If we do this, the world will be a better place. We will change the world for the better. My inner theme is to make the world better at changing, to change the world for a better place. Which means, I talk about change and creativity, and I talk about global, but you combine the two together, you have a world that is constantly trying to become better by changing. That's my inner core. And that's why I will always travel so much. Even with small kids at home. Find your inner thing. Alright, I think this is the last one. San Francisco. When we think about San Francisco, what do we think about? High-tech, flower tower, gay rights. But for me, it's about stories. Steve Jobs in the garage, Hewlett Packard in another garage, Google in the third garage. It's about this story that they tell about who they are. And the one thing that separates keynote speakers at global conferences with the ones who don't get it is that they have their own story. No one books anymore what I call a Google speaker. Someone who Googles nice stories and nice examples, put them together and gives a speech. They want to hear your stories. Your stories. And if you don't have those stories, you create those stories. So where's Andrew? Andrew speaks of self-leadership. And me and Andrew had the same thing. We meet once in a while, we share experiences, and we were talking about this. And I said, Andrew, put some more stories into it that is your stories. And I told him, you should use this story. Remember this? Rocky. For me, this is the definition of self-leadership. Eye of the tiger. He's like, oh, I'm not going to do it, I'm not doing it. And then, oh, I'm going to do it. And then runs and runs up the stairs and goes, yes! I said, you should use that story, you should make it yours. You should call Sylvester Stallone and you should ask him, when you did this filming, then tell me something that happened. Tell me something that most people don't know. That will make it your story. You're not talking about just a piece of a clip from a movie. Now it's your story, because you can tell when you talk to Sylvester Stallone. And I said, I can't do that. I can't call Sylvester Stallone. He's not going to answer. He doesn't know who I am. I said, you're probably right. Do you know what you do? You go to the Internet Movie Database and you look, who are the other people who worked on Rocky in 1979 or whatever they made that movie? And you look and you can see that the director is actually still alive, but he's 80 years old. No one has called him in 10 years. Now you Google him and you find him and you call him and say, hi, I'm speaking of self-leadership and I have seen your amazing shots from Rocky and I would like to, can you tell me something when you did this shot? And he will tell you, yeah, you see when we did this shot, you know what happened? Actually, Sylvester Stallone, he was actually kind of doubtful. He didn't think it was going to work. We almost cut the scene out. But then at the end, we put it in and it works. What? The most famous self-leadership shot in the history of movie was laid in doubt. It's an amazing story that I just made up. But that's not the point. The point is that he will tell you something like this. And now, when you tell this story, it's your story, because there's a connection between you and that story. When I go around the world and I speak, I try to find those stories so that I can tell stories about when I was speaking to the CEO of SKF in China, this happened to me. And then I tell that story and connect it to a message. That's what they want. Oh, we have one more. Since we are in Singapore, I should end with saying. What do we learn about being a global speaker from Singapore? A lot, as it turns out. Because there's a lot of people who say, and I get this question a lot, you are a global speaker, do you change your speech a lot depending on which country you're speaking to? And I say, no, I don't. And people are very surprised when they hear that. But my point is that you shouldn't. You shouldn't change your speech. You should change your speech as little as possible. You should change it according to the industry you're speaking to, but you shouldn't change it so much according to the country you're speaking in. For two reasons. Reason number one, if you have a speech for every culture that you're speaking in, you have to have 200 different speeches. But if you have a speech that's made for human beings, regardless of where they come from, with examples from all over the world, you can do exactly the same speech anywhere in the world. And the second reason is, you hardly ever speak, at least if you speak globally, at global conferences, you never speak from an audience that comes from one country. Now this is the Singapore, Asia Professional Speakers Singapore Conference. Let's see, raise your hand. How many of you are Singaporean citizens? Raise your hand. How many are not? See? It's 75% in this audience are non-Singaporeans. So should I just speak for Singaporeans because I'm speaking in Singapore? No. I did a speech recently, when, like I said, the one in, actually this is another one. I spoke for a global conference and there were 150 people in the audience. There were 15 people from Nigeria. I did a speech and they come up and say, we need to bring you to Nigeria. Can you come to Nigeria? I said, of course I can. I go down there, 85% of the people are from Nigeria, 15% are from India. Now should I change my speech from the speech I did at the global conference to the speech I did in Nigeria, because now they're all Nigerians? No, I shouldn't. I should do exactly the same speech that I did at the global conference, because that's the speech that they wanted, number one. And number two, in my examples, I have examples that work everywhere. In the 20th century, you would think global but act global. In the 21st century, you should think human and act humane. And that means create stories that work on everyone, regardless of where they come from. Because in a global audience, at a global conference, there will be 130 different nationalities. So who are you going to target with your speech? You target everyone. And I think you can agree that it doesn't matter if you're a Singaporean or you're an American and you hear me speak, this is relevant for both the Singaporean and the American. And that's the mindset you should have. So now about the 5 examples. As you can see, most of it is about how to make a better speech to get better bookings, because you did a good speech. Now the reason I think you should speak more globally is the same reason why I will tell my kids to go travel as when they are old enough so they can travel by themselves. Which is probably 29 for me, but it doesn't matter. Because do you remember the first time you traveled outside your home country by yourself? It changes you forever. And you realize the way we do things in my country is not the only way to do things. You can do things in different ways. And when you know there are 2 ways of doing it, you realize there's a multiple ways of doing it. It's a wonderful small little planet with so many different ways of doing it. And when you go around and you speak in so many different countries in 1 year, your mind shifts forever and you get this mindset of humanity trying to solve problems together. It changes your mindset, it changes who you are. And the last reason why you should be a global speaker is to do a comparison to something that is almost similar to what we do, which is bands, musicians. Now you can do very well being a local musician in a local town, and you can be famous in this little town, and that's totally okay. You can today even be a YouTube sensation, and you can make a lot of money playing your music on YouTube, and you don't never have to travel, and that's also okay. We have a music enterprise. But if you are a band, what do you strive for? What do most bands strive to do? Try to make it big. You try to make it global. And ask yourself this question. Why is Rolling Stones still planning world tour? They don't need the money. They don't need the fame. They technically shouldn't be doing it. They might die on the stage, right? But they do it. And you know why they do it? They do it because a world tour is the biggest stages, the biggest audience, the biggest budgets, and as a band, the biggest reward that you can get. No live TV show will ever be speaking for 500,000 people in Copacabana in Rio de Janeiro. That's what they do. That's why they go on world tours. So we should be inspired by Mick Jagger. And we should say, if he goes on world tours, so should we. Because the global conferences are the biggest budgets. The global audience is the most important people. The global audience has the biggest budgets for you as a speaker, the biggest impact you can do as a speaker, because what you do trickles down to 130 countries. That's what we should aim for. That's what it means to be a truly global speaker. That's the equivalent in our industry to being a rock star. Go on world tours. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I woke at 7:30 this morning. Who was on stage preparing? Fredrik, Haren. Unbelievable. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for another keynote. Ladies and gentlemen, I need a favour.